I had grand plans for this video. I was going to do an extended recording session so I could show off as much content possible in this well-remembered smash hit crossover game. And then it all fell apart on me, because Famicom Jump is terrible. At the time, however, Famicom Jump was a big deal for Famicom fans. It sold 1.1 million copies on release, making it the 29th best-selling Famicom cartridge. Its success was based on one thing. This is a crossover game featuring the most popular characters in Japan during the 1980s. Shonen Jump is the best-selling weekly comic anthology magazine in Japan, and 1989 was its 20th anniversary, so they made Famicom Jump to celebrate that. If you're familiar with anything from Japanese comics and cartoons, it almost definitely has its roots in Shonen Jump. For things that we've seen on the Famicom, Kinnikuman, Dragon Ball, Hokuto no Ken, Saint Seiya, and Captain Tsubasa are all originally from Shonen Jump, and characters from those appear in this game. You might also notice that between those 5 series, they account for 7 of the worst Famicom games I've played. A few years ago we had the NES Mini, which put some old games into one box for people, and of course Japan had the Famicom Mini at the same time. But Japan also got a second Famicom Mini, a special Shonen Jump Famicom Mini that was loaded up with many of the games based on characters from Shonen Jump. It is a compilation of some of the worst Famicom games out there, but it still sold well because of the Shonen Jump brand. So let's get into Famicom Jump. The story is that you're a reader of Shonen Jump who gets sucked into the world of the comics. The villains of all the stories have decided to team up and take out the heroes, so it's up to you to gather everyone together to stop them. Famicom Jump is an action-adventure game, and it absolutely is not an RPG, despite what a lot of online sources say. The closest it gets to an RPG is that your characters do get some experience for fighting, but there's no levels or stats. That experience is just a modifier to how they behave in the final combat. As you wander the world, enemies will spawn in, and getting close to them will put you into a confrontation with them. For every character, the A button does a close-range attack, the B button does a long-range attack. There's a recharge time on the long-range attacks, so you can't just fire them over and over again. When you bump into a character on the map, you have a couple seconds where you can walk around and start combat, but you don't want to do that because sometimes they're friendly and will talk to you. You need to wait for them to start fighting. The combat is bad. It's all played from this kind of overheadish view, and you have such a small reach with your close-range attack that it's more common for enemies to just knock you around. You have hardly any maneuverability, and for enemies that have long-range attacks, they knock you back enough that they can just sit there indefinitely shooting at you. They can also shoot your attacks out of the air, which makes spacing out your strikes important. The combat is just unpleasant, and when you consider that's the primary gameplay, that's a bit of a problem. You'll find towns with shops where you can purchase things to help you out. Rice balls will heal you up, but you can only carry one of them at a time, though it will let you buy as many of them as you like. And this delivery box will ship you back to your last save point. The save points are monoliths that you'll find sitting around the terrain. You approach them to get your password. Of course, on your quest, you'll find heroes to help you out. You have to add them to your party, which can have 2 additional heroes besides yourself. And then you have to switch to using them. There's 16 heroes that you'll need to collect, and they are, in the order that you'll find them, Nukasaku, Kenshiro, Son Goku, Ryo Saiba, Ariel, Pegasus Seiya, Momotaro Tsurugi, Mankichi Tokawa, Reiki Kikoku, Joseph Joestar, Joji Kano, Isamu, Captain Tsubasa, Taro Yamashita, Kyuichi Uno, and Kinnikuman. That is a lot of characters, but there really isn't a whole lot of difference between them. If you die, it's game over, but when you choose to start game from the main menu, you'll continue. If one of your characters dies, then you have a different problem. There are 2 ways to revive a dead character. The first, intended way, is that you have to gather all 7 Dragon Balls and then wish for them to return to life. You have the Dragon Radar, and that will help you locate the balls scattered around the map. You pick up the balls automatically when you walk on top of them, and there isn't really an indicator that you've collected one. And the radar isn't really that helpful, since collecting the ball requires some extra precise movement. It's not just a matter of standing on the right square, you have to be standing on the right pixel. Getting Dragon Balls sounds like a lot of work, so what you could do instead is get your password, reset the game, and re-enter the password. All characters start out with full health when you do that. Something to be aware of is this Angel Devil meter. That's your spirit. If you attack friendly characters, then it goes down, but it also goes down while you're just walking around. The way that you build back up towards Angel is that you buy and read Shonen Jump. Seriously. In my attempted playthrough, I started out heading over here to the fortune teller, who made me fight in a tournament against some Kinnikuman characters in order to get information about where a hero was. That was Nukasaku. He's a comedy character who attacks enemies with his butt. The other character you can recruit in the first region is Kenshiro. To collect him, you first have to find this house in the middle of nowhere. There you're told what time he'll appear at a grave. There's a clock in Famicom Jump where it advances an hour about every 5 minutes of in-game time. I was told that Kenshiro would be at the grave in about 2 hours, so I had to basically walk in circles for 10 minutes until that time arrived. Once you've recruited your team, you head over to this castle. You're not allowed to enter anything until the appropriate story events have been triggered, so you could come here before this, but you just walk on top of it. Here you're recreating a scene from one of the early arcs of Hokuto no Ken, and you experience the next problem with Famicom Jump. A lot of special sequences throw you to minigames, and the minigames are even worse than the regular game. Here we have a fighting game where you hit A to punch and B to block, and that's it. It's trivially easy. With Kenshiro's arch-rival defeated, you go on to the next region, and you're not allowed to bring your heroes with you, so you start over alone. Region 2 is based on the works of Akira Toriyama, so you have Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball mashed up. A trick to this part of the quest is that you can suddenly enter some doors that you couldn't go into before. They didn't do anything, then you talk to the right person, and then they did something. You'll also get a time machine, and from this point on, a lot of the game lets you go back and forth in time. This is also where you can recruit Ryo Saiba from City Hunter, assuming you can catch him in this maze chase game before you get swept up 3 times. And that's as far as I got. Playing Famicom Jump was a really miserable experience, and it doesn't even give you the feeling of using the characters or bringing them together in an interesting way. Everyone winds up being kind of the same. Kenshiro's ability to explode people's heads is exactly the same as bumping into somebody with your butt. And even just walking around the map is frustrating. A lot of the terrain slows you down, and when it slows you down, the game draws your sprite twice, which gives it this weird shimmering effect. That's not an artifact of the video capture you're seeing. Famicom Jump is a shoddily made game in every respect. And yet, those high sales still got it a sequel. It's much smaller in scale at least. This is only one of 2 Famicom games to have its title molded into the cart, and I feel like that is some really misplaced effort. The game itself feels like a low-effort cash-in, so maybe they should have worked a little bit harder at making the game interesting instead of the packaging.